I am on a quest to slay the dreaded YouTube algorithm, but I realized something along the way. I'm not so great at making videos yet, and it is my sole mission to get better so that I can take down the dreaded YouTube algorithm. So, this is day 9 of my attempt to get better to eventually take on the mighty dragon of YouTube. Today, I went out into the world, and I actually went on a beautiful hike. But it gets a little dicey. So as I was going on this hike, I got to the top. I was actually driving up a mountain. My car's power steering is going in and out, which is not great, not necessarily safe, working on it. But as I was driving up, there's these big, heavy cliff faces on the side of the mountain, and the only thing that's protecting them is just a small amount of metal railing. So, as you can probably put one and one together, if you can't turn super well and you have these big, huge cliff face that only stop with metal railings, it can get a little scary really quickly. As I was going up and around this mountain, I was getting higher and higher. And I was driving my car, and every time I know that the power steering is going out, because there's this little click right underneath the steering wheel, it just lets me know, hey, by the way, your car doesn't turn anymore. So I was driving up this mountain, and I hear that click. I am out of town right now, so I want to get this fixed, but I can't do it until I get back. It's too long of a process, but I still want to enjoy my time. So I'm going up, I hear that click, and not only does the car tense up, I do too. I see this railing rapidly approaching. I'm pulling as hard as I can on the thing, hitting on the wheel, hitting the brake, and I was able to avoid the first one. I keep going up. It happens a couple more times. But then I get to this stretch of road. The stretch of road is very thin. It's it barely counts as having 2 lanes. There was a line dividing the middle, but my tire was practically on the other side of the line, even though I was in the center of the lane that I was in. And as I was driving up, I heard that click, and my heart sank, because there was really no room for error on this part of the road. There's also a sign off to the side that says, "Be careful of falling rocks." Never really considered those signs before, but without the ability to turn very well, that sign really stuck out in my memory. As I began to take this turn, I couldn't really see what was on the other side. There was most likely a car coming down because it seemed to be a pretty busy road. I slowed down as much as I could, but ended up with all my might slamming down on the wheel and curving around the corner. And as I come around the corner, I realize that there is a small rock in the road. And I'm going straight for the rock, and my car is not turning super well. I'm going not that fast. It's only like 20 miles per hour at this point, but it's fast enough. I mean, 20 miles per hour for a split second's enough to go off a mountain. So I'm coming up on this rock. I'm getting closer, and I'm trying to pull on it. There's a car coming, but it's a pretty decent way up the road, and I've basically been like, well, this is the way that my car goes down. I am going to do my best to not go off the side of the mountain, but there's not really much I can do about it with this rock in the center of the road. And then all of a sudden, as I feel like I'm about to hit this rock, I hear the click again, and all of a sudden my steering comes back on. I swerve out of the way and swerve back around the rock, still keeping only about 20 miles per hour, trying to slowly climb my way up, and my heart returned back into my chest. I felt my soul basically re-enter my body as I was climbing the rest of this mountain, getting to the top where the trailheads start. I got on the trailhead after what was a pretty crazy drive and started walking. I saw this very cute dog that was training along the way off their leash. They were giving them treats as they were going, and this dog, really doofy dog smile with the little tongue hanging out, starts running towards me. Wants obviously to be pet, but the owner calls it back, and it was such a good dog. The owner called it back, and the dog was like, "What?" And it turned around and basically sat in front of the owner and got treats for days as I walked by. I went deeper up on top of this mountain, got higher and higher up, until there was this cliff face on the side, something that I hadn't fully gotten out of my brain as being absolutely terrifying at this point. I was never really Not that I'm afraid of heights, but I was never really wary around the sides of cliffs. But after what had just happened, like 5 minutes before, I was a little nervous about the side of the cliff. Anyway, kept going up the trail, got to the cliff face where I could oversee this beautiful lay of the mountains. I could see towns in the distance and the trees that were red and yellow that looked like fire that set off across the entirety of the open chasm that was this valley that I was looking into. And as I was looking around, I noticed that these little cliff faces, they had caves in them. Not deep caves, well, I guess they were deep, but not big, not like a bear could squeeze into them, but just enough for a human my size to venture into. So I find these caves. At first I get a lay of the land. I try to figure out where all the different caves are, which ones I think I can get into, which ones I don't think I can get into. And for those of you that don't know me very well, I'm not really afraid of much, but like even claustrophobia doesn't bother me. But one thing I don't particularly like is when things are above my head. I, for some reason, always feel like they're gonna fall and crush me. I don't know why. Very morbid, very, I guess, interesting fear, but that's one of the fears of mine. So I'm usually pretty apt to walk, or I usually don't want to walk into caves where there's rocks resting on other rocks just above my head. It makes me feel like it's going to collapse in. But today, after, for some reason, experiencing what I experienced, I felt like today was the day that I wanted to try to push my fear and see if I could push past it a little bit. It's nothing debilitating, but it was enough. I found a couple of the caves, and the first one I ventured into was pretty wide. It was round rock all the way on top. There was nothing really hanging, so I felt pretty comfortable. I walked in, I walked to the back. It was maybe 20 feet, and it was a nice little intro to what was to come. After that, I went over to, I was like, this is a little too easy. Let me try something a little bit more intense. Let me really try to push myself on this one. So I found one that was really thin and narrow. Basically, I had to turn to the side if I wanted to go in, and honestly, there wasn't enough room for my chest. So as I turned in and started breaching the beginning of the cave, if I tried to breathe in all the way, my chest was like held back, so I couldn't get a full breath. So if I wanted to go through this first little part of this cave, I had to basically hold my breath. It seemed to open up a little bit later, but that first little stretch was a little nerve-wracking, and right above the entrance was this rock that looked like it was just barely resting on the little lips of the cave, of the rock face. It was basically balanced right on top, right above my head. And I looked up and I was like, if I wanted to push my fear, this is the one. This rock looks like it's barely hanging in there. I would have to squeeze past and hold my breath and do my best to get past to get into the cave. I have no idea why I was thinking of doing this, to be completely honest, but I decided to do it anyway. As I started to squeeze in and pull my chest in and breathe all my air out and just kind of shimmy by, I made it into this open cavern where I felt like the rock was going to fall on me. I got by and I was safe. I was good to go. I explored in this little cavern and I found a couple snakes, actually. There were some chipmunks that were in there, and it was a pretty cool little cavern. I didn't necessarily want to leave though, because I had to go back through the same squeeze, but it was an interesting little hike as I went down into these different parts of this cave that weren't very deep, maybe 50 feet back. And then I turned around, finally squeezed back out, and went back down the mountain and enjoyed the rest of my day. Overall, today was a great day, and I enjoyed the hike. I enjoyed every aspect of it. And if you're watching this far and you enjoyed the story that I told today of what had happened to me, and you want to support me on my journey to defeating the YouTube algorithm, I'm going to throw a subscription bubble right up here. Go ahead and click that and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 50 subscribers so that I can go live on YouTube and really practice in person live. I think it'll be a great experience. Otherwise, you can check out my other videos right here. There's going to be something that's perfect for you. Go ahead and check that out and hear about my other stories. Otherwise, keep being you.